Welcome back, Sebastian here. So time for my power rankings for the 2024 Belgian Grand Prix. Obviously pretty delayed from when they would usually be, but unfortunately moving does that to you. And as you can see, things are kind of in a bit of a wreck. The lighting's terrible. I'm in a really awkward position. I'm holding the whiteboard, but we're just going to try to get through this as best as we can. So number 20, I'm going to go with Zhou Guangyu. So for Zhou, qualifying was a bit of a struggle. Out-qualified by his teammate by 2.244 seconds. Again, wet conditions, longest track on the calendar, so it's understandable in some respect. But that being said, qualified dead last, started 19th, and then unfortunately retired from the Grand Prix with some kind of mechanical issue. Not a whole lot more to comment other than that. Yeah, pretty poor Grand Prix all around. Number 19, I'm going to go with Logan Sargent. So for Sargent, out-qualified by his teammate Alex Albon by 1.508 seconds. Again, margin still too big, much bigger than you would like it to be. Qualified 19th, of course started 18th because of Tsunoda's grid penalty. So yeah, qualified right towards the back, and Albon showed that there was enough pace in the car to at least get through to Q2. In the race, finished 17th. Albon very, very close to point as well, but shows there that there was at least some pace in the car this weekend. Unfortunately for Sargent, not able to extract it. Number 18th. I think this is being a bit harsh, but I decided to put Nico Hülkenberg in 18th. Qualifying went okay. Out-qualified his teammate Kevin Magnussen by about 0.2 of a second, but at the same time went backwards in the race and ended up finishing in 18th place. I believe was on the two-stop strategy like most other drivers. Just seemed that for whatever reason the pace wasn't there on Sunday. Yeah, not a great Grand Prix, I would say, for Hülkenberg. Could have had him a couple places higher, but I thought, 18th is all right for him. Number 17, I'm going to go with Yuki Tsunoda. So for Tsunoda, out-qualified 1.142 seconds. It was about 18th on the grid or so before his penalty, which was applied, which then sent him to the back. But he knew that with that 60-place grid penalty, Saturday wasn't going to matter a whole lot. So understandable that he wouldn't really go at 100% in qualifying. In the race, finished 16th. Wasn't a terrible Grand Prix. I felt it was okay, but I did feel like over the course of the whole weekend, not quite as good as his teammate Daniel Ricciardo. Number 16. Number 16, I'm going to go with one of the French drivers on the grid, and that is Pierre Gasly. So for Gasly, qualifying, again, not great compared to his teammate Esteban Ocon. Started P12. I believe, also qualified P12. 0.175 seconds behind his teammate, which again, the margin's not terrible, but again, you want to be out-qualifying your teammate more often than not, especially if your teammate's not a Max Verstappen caliber driver. And then for Gasly, went backwards in the race, finished 13th place, again, one place lower, lost position to Stroll on that one-stop strategy. For Gasly, just didn't quite have the pace in the car that his teammate Ocon did. Number 15, I'm going to go with the aforementioned Lance Stroll. So for Stroll, qualifying was pretty poor, 1.458 seconds off his teammate Alonso. Started the Grand Prix in 15th. Strategy was nice, allowed him to kind of finish quite a bit ahead of the drivers around him. But still, compared to Alonso, not a great weekend. Finished 11th on the road with, of course, the help of that disqualification from Russell. His teammate Alonso got points, so again, not a great weekend from Stroll, but not like an absolute disaster either. And of course, good job making that one-stop strategy work. Number 14. Number 14, I've gone with Kevin Magnussen. Qualifying wasn't great. Out-qualified by his teammate Nico Hülkenberg by about 0.2 of a second. Started 17th on the grid, but I thought did a really good job making up positions. And the race pace was quite strong. Finished 14th on the road, and was on that two-stop strategy like most drivers, and still made up quite a few good positions. So I thought, overall not a bad Grand Prix from Magnussen. Number 13. I'm going to go with Valtteri Bottas. So for Bottas, another solid Grand Prix. Qualified P14 in the Sauber. Out-qualified his teammate Zhou Guanyu for 2.2 seconds. So again, qualifying pace was very good there. Won the teammate head-to-head. And then in the race, just finished 15th. Not a whole lot more to add. The race pace clearly isn't there for the Sauber. They just don't have the tire man through them, and they're not able to let kind of be competitive, be more competitive than the cars around them, which would allow them to finish further up the road more often than not. So they're just kind of often stuck either staying in the same position or falling back slightly in the races. Number 12. So a better Grand Prix from Sergio Perez, but still not a fantastic race. I think benefited massively in qualifying from the extreme for the fact that the Red Bull was so strong in those wet qualifying conditions. We saw Verstappen took pole by 0.6 of a second. Perez still out-qualified by Charles Leclerc, still finished starting P2 with that grid penalty for Verstappen. And so qualifying actually, the averages compared to Verstappen were about the same as where they've been for the last 5 or 6 races. The difference was that Red Bull was just, for whatever reason, extremely strong on Saturday. Then we get to Sunday. Sunday's race was not particularly strong from Perez. Kind of an opposite, a reversal of fortunes of what we've seen the last couple of weekends, race weekends, where Perez will have an awful Saturday and then an okay to good Sunday, and then everyone would say, well, if Perez, qualified up in P5, P4, wherever, he'd be on the podium very easily. And today, not today, but this past weekend in Belgium, he had that opportunity, starting P2 on the grid with presumably what we presume to be the faster McLaren starting 4th and 6th. He had all those conditions there to, if not grab the win, at least get an easy podium. For whatever reason, the race pace, the tire management was just not there. The second stint in particular was pretty awful. I think that second stint on hard tires only lasted 10 laps, whereas for Verstappen, basically pitted roughly the same time, that stint lasted 18 laps. So again, not sure what happened there, but yeah, pretty tricky weekend for Perez. But no crashes, anything like that. Did think Saturday was okay. It was okay, all things considered. So I haven't had him quite as far down as I've had him in recent weeks. Number 11. I've gone with Carlos Sainz. For Sainz, out-qualified by his teammate Charles Leclerc by 0.7 of a second. Started the Grand Prix 7th and finished 6th. Honestly, I thought the pace was okay, solid. Qualifying gap's a bit big, and again, I felt like he didn't quite have the pace of his teammate Charles Leclerc. So yeah, again, for Sainz, not a great weekend, but he'll be glad he brought home a solid handful of points. Number 10. I've gone with Alex Albon. So for Albon, out-qualified his teammate Logan Sargent by 1.5 seconds. Starting the Grand Prix in 10th, unfortunately not able to convert it into points. Finished in 12th position on the road, so just outside the points. A bit unfortunate for him, but that being said, I think overall, still a pretty good weekend for Albon. Number 9, I'm going to go with Daniel Ricciardo. For Ricciardo, out-qualified his teammate by 1.1 seconds, but like I kind of mentioned before with Tsunoda, because of Tsunoda's grid penalty, teammate head-to-head comparison in this case isn't that important. That being said, for Ricciardo, qualifying 13th, I think maybe would have expected a little bit better, maybe pushing into that top 10. But in the Grand Prix, the race pace was pretty good. Ended up finishing 10th on the road, of course, benefiting from Russell's disqualification. That being said, I do think he wasn't the best driver in that best of the rest, even excluding Alonso's Aston Martin, beaten by Ocon. So still, a good race, but not an absolutely perfect one, I think, for Ricciardo. Number 8. Number 8, I've decided to go with Lando Norris. For Norris, qualified 4th, 0.046 seconds off of his teammate Piastri. Really felt like in qualifying, they should have had a bit more pace. Should have at least been on the front row. And based on how this Grand Prix went, where clean air was so important, who knows how things turn out if you have a McLaren 1-2 on the front row instead of them starting 4th and 6th. Then in the race, I think Norris had a really poor start, dropped him behind a whole bunch of cars, got undercut by Verstappen, and just wasn't able to overtake to regain those positions with that natural pace that he had. So I felt like, again, something that was a trend that we started kind of to see is that McLaren is roughly on pace, fastest or very close to the fastest car, but they're just not able to execute the weekends, execute the Sunday especially, and convert that pace, that long run pace into wins. Number 7, I'm going to go with Fernando Alonso. Thought it was a really solid Grand Prix from the Spaniard. Qualifying, pretty good. Qualified 8th place. Out-qualified his teammate Stroll by 1.45 seconds. And then in the race, just kind of solidly chugged along. Finished 8th. Of course, finished 9th on the road. Got those extra 2 points because of disqualification. And again, pretty good result, I felt, for Alonso, and about the best that he could have achieved this weekend. Number 6. I've gone with Esteban Ocon. Really solid drive from the Frenchman. Honestly, I think you could put him in the top 5, but I felt the top 5 drivers deserved to all be there. So I kind of, just because of that, decided to put Ocon in 6. Qualified went pretty well. Qualified in P9, almost a 2/10 gap to his teammate Gasly. And then the Grand Prix, I think, slid back a bit, and then of course benefited with the disqualification of Russell. And ended up finishing 9th, getting 2 really crucial points for the Alpine team. Number 5, I'm going with Oscar Piastri. Qualifying half a tenth behind his teammate Lando Norris in qualifying, so again on that mark, not terrible. But in the Grand Prix, I felt really strong pace, had a good start, and was able to kind of leapfrog quite a few cars. And then towards the end was challenging for the win there, just not able to get the overtake done because of how the track conditions were and how difficult it was to overtake. That being said, still pretty strong Grand Prix, I felt, for Piastri. But again, the reason I put him behind some of the drivers who are yet to come is I feel that, again, similar to Norris, felt that McLaren's had better pace this weekend, and he simply wasn't able to really capitalize on it. Alright, so number four, I'm going with Max Verstappen. So for Verstappen, sorry, I just got a marker on my desk. For Verstappen, Saturday was absolutely perfect. Took pole position by 0.6 of a second. Nothing more he could have done there. In the Grand Prix, of course, with that grid penalty starting in 11th, grid penalty not his fault. I figured before the race, best case scenario, podium. Not able to get there, ended up finishing I believe in 4th place. Yeah, 4th place. 5th place on the road. And again, really struggling with quite a few of the other drivers with not being able to overtake cars around him. Did well on the strategy, undercutting Norris and all. And I think, the race pace itself was pretty good. I think, a bit disappointing not to get a podium, but still I felt a very strong weekend from Verstappen. Number 3, I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc. For Leclerc, qualifying went very, very well. Took pole position, of course, benefiting from Verstappen getting with the grid penalty. But still, 0.7 on Sainz is the biggest gap that he's had on his teammate in quite a long time. And then I think we all know that the Ferraris generally not had the best race pace. They've generally been about 4th the last 5 or 6 races or so. So I think the fact that Leclerc was able to still maintain such good pace, end up on the podium, of course, helped with the situation I've mentioned about 1,200 times in this video already. But still, I felt really strong weekend from Leclerc. Now we have 2 drivers left. You have the 2 Mercedes. One's going to be number 1, one's going to be number 2. I made my power rankings before we really found out what was going on with Russell, why he was disqualified and all of that. We found out that his car was 1.5 kilograms overweight. Of course, that's a significant amount of speed, of pace. So again, it's hard to really put that into perspective, similar to with Hamilton's disqualification in Coda last year. That being said, I made these power rankings Monday morning, my time, so right after the Grand Prix. And again, so I'm just going to stick with it, even though, I think you can make a good judgment call to switch them around the other way. So number 2, I'm going to go with Hamilton. Number 1, I'm going with George Russell. So Hamilton won the qualifying head-to-head, about 3.5 tenths of a second. Hamilton started third, Russell starting in sixth. Again, that being said, for Russell, I felt the pace was very, very strong, did a perfect job executing the one-stop strategy. Was the only driver really in that lead group to take the initiative to go on such a risky strategy and make that strategy call. So again, giving him a lot of marks for that. And then of course with the tire management and doing such a fantastic job at the end of the race to basically hold Hamilton behind on much faster tires. Again, you can make the argument the other way, saying, you know, because of the underweight car, of course he was going to be able, it was easier to stay ahead. But for Hamilton, I really felt he should have been able to overtake with that massive tire advantage that he had, just not able to do so. And again, race pace still though very, very strong from the two of them, and just that that battle in the last closing laps, I felt for me was really the deciding factor to put Russell ahead of Hamilton. But again, I think you can make a solid argument for Hamilton ahead of Russell, and honestly, you can make a really good argument for basically any of the drivers, and then I would say the top four being number one on that power ranking. So there you go, there's my power ranking for the 2024 Belgian Grand Prix, 4 days delayed. That's really the end of the videos until the summer break, which of course as always already came. And of course I forgot to mention that Sainz is now signed for Williams for 2025 as well. So I guess schedule for the next month until the Dutch Grand Prix. Still settling in here. Hopefully things will be in better shape and not as catastrophic. So I'll do my mid-season reviews between now and then, probably spaced out every 2 to 3 days per team, and of course with any other breaking news that comes along. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.